Welcome to the Awakened Woman podcast. Today I'm so excited to do an episode just myself. This is the first time that I'm recording on my own, and I just felt that it was time for me to just expand my work and just talk about all the interesting topics that excites us so much. So in today's podcast episode, I am so excited to talk about this topic because I know a lot of people in my community and a lot of women can resonate with this, mainly as high functioning women. And this is why mindset work isn't enough when our nervous system is in survival, and why somatic healing changes what the mind cannot. When a nervous system is operating from survival, from patterns and behaviors that have learned that the only way to receive safety, to feel safety in the body, and to receive that validation, that recognition that we received as kids is by doing, by achievement. So this is a blueprint that happens in the nervous system. The more we want to change these beliefs, and the more we want to override the nervous system by doing mindset work, the more frustrated we will become, because these patterns and these behaviors are not something that can easily be changed by the mind. In fact, when I started my journey, I realized that the more mindset work that I did, the more frustrated I will become. And this is why changes, deep changes, and long-lasting behaviors that want to be shifted in the body needs to start in the body itself. So the way that we created limiting beliefs was by having a thought or an experience that created a certain chemical in the body, and that chemical then became a narrative. So let's say that the first time that I encountered a dog when I was 3 years old, I reached for the dog and the dog experienced an aggressive response. So it bit me. In that moment, the body released a chemical, adrenaline and cortisol, for stress, to get the body into fight or flight, to protect the body from that external threat. So when that chemical happened, the body then links that experience with a narrative and a belief. So let's say dogs are not safe, because every time I approach a dog will bite me. So that's the narrative. And then the limiting belief. And I say limiting belief because this is not the true nature. This was just an experience. It doesn't mean that every single dog that I will encounter is going to be aggressive. But for the human body, for our human mind, one experience that generated an intense emotional response in the body creates that chemical that creates that blueprint, and then the limiting belief. So we understand the narrative. Now, the limiting belief is dogs are not safe. So then, as a kid, I go out in life having that belief, that thought in that moment, and as a repetitive thought, it becomes then a belief. When that becomes a belief, then we know that this is going to create our reality. So that kid goes into life believing that dogs are not safe. So the universe, the external reality will reaffirm that belief. And this is just a small example, but this happens with every single experience we have gone through in our lives about the world, about relationships, about women, about men, about our self-worth, our potential. So then when our safety and our acceptance and belonging, that are core needs as humans, are always linked to performance. If our parents only praised us when we had good grades, when we're excelling at sports, when we were a good boy or a good girl, then we create that narrative, only loved and accepted when I do what my parents want to do, when I do what my grandparents want to do, when I'm a good girl and a good boy. This is why I absolutely am against parents saying, good girl, good boy, because you are basically training your kid to link your acceptance to their behavior according to who they are and their self-worth. So now if we go deeper into these concepts, right? And we are talking about everything about like a nervous system regulation and safety in the body, and how we created these limiting beliefs and how we created these behaviors and patterns, and then it becomes our reality. So when we are talking about nervous system regulation and long-lasting change, as I said, that chemical response, it's a blueprint in the body that cannot be override with mindset work. Mindset work can be just a way to replace consciously what what you think about that external experience. Let's put that experience about the dog. You can think about, okay, I know consciously that all dogs are not unsafe, right? But when you encounter a dog, that logic won't override the nervous system response. And this is a key part. Why? Because the nervous system didn't have the capacity and the safety in that moment to complete the nervous system cycle and release the cortisol, release that stress, so the body could actually complete that stress cycle. So in that case, for example, kid just either crying or just releasing that cortisol, so then they could understand that this was an isolated experience. So when the kid has that capacity, has an adult that helps them co-regulate in that moment to complete that nervous system, that stress cycle, and then by communication, letting them know this dog in a specific, that they are safe, then in that moment, that narrative can completely change. But we don't always have that opportunity to create that response, to complete that nervous system response in the body. And most of the time, this is where the nervous system remains active. And every single time that that kid is going to see a dog, that the body will perceive that experience, will go back to that former experience because it's already a blueprint in the body with that chemical response and therefore the limiting belief that was created through the narrative. And this is why, for us to really experience long-lasting change, it needs to happen first in the nervous system. So how do we do this? The first thing to understand is that the nervous system does not respond to insight. It responds to safety. So this is why it doesn't matter how many times you are going to say your affirmations. If your nervous system doesn't feel safe, it will override the body and the behavior and the response in the moment that you get activated. And this is usually when healing feels so resistant. Like maybe you have been doing the affirmations. Maybe you have been shifting and reprogramming your limiting beliefs. Maybe you have been like just more conscious about your behaviors. But then in the moment that your body gets activated and you experience a trigger, then you go into default mode. And this is when the blueprint takes over. So in these moments, the work is in feeling that somatic response. The more you go into your mind, the more you're trying to intellectualize and get out of the body. And this is why the nervous system is dysregulated in the first place, because in the moment that that trigger happens, your body goes back into recognizing that former experience, as I said, and it doesn't feel safe. So it goes out of the body. In order for us to reconnect with the nervous system and allow the nervous system to complete that nervous system cycle, the stress response, then we need to allow the body to feel that trigger, to feel that nervous system reaction. In these moments, it's very important to recognize that healing happens in gradual, small steps. So this is not about you sitting for 5 hours and feeling the stress that talking to your boss about your salary rise or speaking your truth in your relationship where you are feeling disrespected or not considerate. It's not about sitting 5 hours before you have that conversation. It's more about acknowledging that fear in your body and allowing that discomfort to be present without wanting to get out of it, without wanting to change it, without wanting to intellectualize it, or even worse, without thinking that there's something wrong with you for feeling that way. And I will say this is the number one reason why people get stuck in their healing journey. It's not because they don't have the capacity. It is actually because they think that when they get triggered, there's something wrong with them. So the only thing that has been wrong with you in those moments is thinking that there's something wrong with you, because that belief keeps you completely stuck. It doesn't allow you to see your reality, your experiences from a higher perspective, from the observer, where you can, instead of react to everything that happens to you, to your triggers, to your outside world, you become conscious and you become a consciously responding individual or consciously responding in your highest good for that moment. So the moment that you understand that these somatic sensations, that these nervous system responses are in fact healthy, that means that your nervous system is trying to complete nervous system cycle, stress cycle that could not be completed in the past because you didn't didn't have that mental, emotional, nervous system capacity. As an adult, you do have it. And this is when we retrain the body to hold that sensation and letting it feel that it is safe to experience fear, to experience stress, to experience pain, to experience rejection by staying with yourself and your body in that moment. And that's when you start reconnecting. And then so we allow the nervous system to complete a normal, a healthy, a natural nervous system response by first noticing that there's never been anything wrong with these nervous system responses. And this is so important because in the healing industry, we constantly hear about how bad it is to react. It is important to first recognize that if you're reacting, it's because your nervous system is looking for closure, is looking for safety. This is more important. Your nervous system is looking for safety. So the moment that you stop reacting to that part of yourself, blaming it as there's something wrong, I'm so reactive, I cannot regulate myself, getting out of the narrative and into the body, into feeling what's in the body in that moment, that's what's going to create the long-lasting transformation. So it is not the affirmations without feeling that new energy in the body. Affirmations without somatic work does not serve for anything. So somatic healing doesn't fix beliefs. It changes the state in which these beliefs were created. And this is the root of true lasting healing, because all these narratives, all these behaviors, all these patterns and attachment wounds were not created in the mind, were created through experience, and they are healed through the experience, and that experience can start with us. There's, of course, in moments where we will be able to heal deeper in relationship, and once the nervous system shifts those beliefs through changing and shifting the experience in the body when we are experiencing that trigger, mindset work becomes a byproduct. So the root of every single belief started with a chemical response in the nervous system. It's not the other way around. So we first had an experience. That experience created that chemical response in the body, emotions, feelings, and that experience, those emotions and feelings created a limiting belief. So when we go to the root instead of the symptom, which is the limiting belief and what I believe about things in my reality, that's when mindset work just becomes a byproduct. We are just going directly into shifting the chemical response in the body by allowing the nervous system to complete that nervous system cycle or trauma cycle, staying with the body through that emotional response, and reestablishing the safety in the nervous system and the reconnection with ourselves. And this is why a lot of the times awareness and emotionally intelligent people feel stuck and frustrated in the healing journey, because awareness without embodiment creates self-blame and shame, not transformation. So you can learn everything about the nervous system, you can learn everything about emotional processing, about regulating yourself, healthy conflict resolution. But if you are not integrating and embodying those concepts, there's nothing really changes. It just stays in your mind as concept and as knowledge. Concept without transformation and concepts without integration is just new knowledge, whereas concept with integration becomes embodiment. So most people don't fail at mindset work. They were never meant to heal through the mind in the first place. And this might be the reason why a lot of people feel lost in their journeys. If you start with mindset work and are not involving the body, you are going through dead end road. Like, it's not gonna take you anywhere, because mindset work without truly involving the nervous system doesn't change really anything. Consciously, it can change in the sense of you're learning new things, new concepts, and you're understanding things from a deeper perspective, but you are not really applying those concepts and integrating them in your day-to-day life. And so this was really the turning point in my healing journey, in my personal development. So I'm going to share with you a quick story about my own journey and how what I'm sharing with you has impacted me and how somatic experiencing really transformed my life. So I've always been someone who is very much growth oriented. I've been reading Eckhart Tolle and following manifestation practices and praying to God and you name it, like many practices. But at some point, like, it was more in the knowledge, it was more learning. And it will give me that false idea that I was like actually progressing. But when I will get into the same patterns, the same behaviors, I will feel so frustrated and I will feel stuck. I started going to therapy, again, just traditional therapy. And I realized I was getting so frustrated with every time I would go to the psychologist because I could not understand why the psychologist was not linking my past and my childhood with my current challenges. So I will always leave those sessions feeling more frustrated. It was all about talking therapy. So I could understand why I was doing the things that I was doing. I could connect the dots, but I could not really get myself to change my ways of being. I could not really get myself to follow a different pattern. And I will get so frustrated because in that moment, psychology was not really transforming my life. So I will go into a different psychologist and I will experience the same obstacles and the same frustration until I found coaching. And this all happened through COVID. So I started doing my coaching certification and I started noticing how truly going deep into patterns and more like understanding things from a logical perspective and then involving the body was the missing point. So that's when I started truly feeling that shift internally. It was not a logical concept that I was understanding. It was an inner knowing, a shift in myself. And this was through somatic experiencing. When I encountered somatic experiencing, my life truly completely changed. And of course, I'm a human. I'm still going through my challenges. I cannot bypass the human experience. We came here to evolve through hardship. But I can really say that the way that I navigate these challenges now and the way I hold myself with healthy and safe nervous system is what has allowed me to take so many risks and shift so many things in my life. I changed careers 3 times. I've moved countries to start a new life around 3, 4 times. And of course, this is not for everyone. But what I'm saying is that healing and transforming your life from within with involving the body allows you to go with the life that you truly desire. You will experience fears because it's a normal part of the human experience, but you will be able to process and navigate those fears from a somatic point of view in more powerful ways. So you can hold yourself through all these challenges. So at the end, I think this is the main message. Mindset work without integration and embodiment is just nice concepts, intellectualizing emotions and not really applying and shifting things from the nervous system perspective. This might be the reason why you feel stuck. So I invite you to just try somatic experiencing, somatic therapy. There's so many amazing coaches out there. You can also reach out and work with me. I work with women who have already done a lot of inner work, a lot of psychology, and are at a point where they are ready to integrate that awareness. So this is work that is deep. It is extremely transformational, and also that means that it's confronting. It is confronting because you will learn to sit with your pain. You will learn to sit with things that are really uncomfortable, with your shame, with blame, with experiences from your past that you might not even know. But your nervous system will never bring anything up into the surface that you are not ready to process. And this is what I say to my clients. So trust your body, trust your wisdom. If this work is truly calling you, this work is transformational. If you feel the call in your body, this is not me trying to push you into this work, because there needs to be nervous system readiness and willingness. But once you are ready for that, believe me, you're not going to be the same person as when you started this work. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me on Instagram or YouTube. I will leave my contact on the description. I will see you soon for another episode of the Awakened Woman podcast.